Hi everyone, and welcome to this first video on how to use the new Durham Moths website. In this video I'm going to talk a bit about the structure of the species pages, where most of the data of the website is displayed. Let's look at an example from a species that's on the wing at the moment, the mottled umber. So at the top of the page we've got the page title, which is the common name and the scientific name. We've got a photo of the species, and we also have some taxonomic information here. Included in this are the family, subfamily and genus of the species. You'll notice these are links, and if you click on them they will take you to a full list of all species in that taxonomic group, like this. More on this sort of thing in another video. Below this we have the species account. For many species this is taken from this publication here, Dunn & Parrick's The Moths and Butterflies of Northumberland and Durham, which, as you can see, was published several decades ago. There are quite a few species that have joined the Durham list since then, and in those cases we've got a new account here written by either Keith or Tim. We're also hoping to write some new accounts for more species because quite a lot of them have changed in their distribution quite a bit since the days of Dunn & Parrick. We also have a table of statistics here, and I've tried to ensure that the most commonly requested ones are included. So we have the total number of records of this species, the number of individuals that have been recorded, the largest ever sample, the first year it was recorded, the most recent year this species has been recorded, and the earliest and latest adult records. Note that these are to do with the flight times rather than the actual date in the year. So, for example, this species, the mottled umber, starts flying in September, so the earliest record is from then, and then the latest is the other side of the year, when it stops flying in March. We also have a calculation of the number of monads that this species has been recorded in the county, which is 1 kilometre squares, and the number of hexads, the 10 kilometre squares. Talking of which, below this we have the map. This shows all of the 1 kilometre squares that this species has been recorded in County Durham. You can zoom into the map, you can pan around, and if you click on a grid square, you will get an option to visit the page related to that grid square, or the 10 kilometre grid square that it occurs in, and this again will give you a full list of all of the species in that grid square. Again, I'm going to post a bit more about this in another video. You can reset the map like this, and you can also use the filter here to change the era from which the records are taken. So for example, this is showing all of the records, but you could, if you wanted to, only view the records of this species that we have from between 1950 and 1999, like this. I've also included an image of the map here because some older browsers can't load this interactive map, and if you click on this it will show you the same information presented in a slightly different way. Below this we have a few graphs to do with time period, the first of which is records according to weeks of the year. So here we have the date at which the week starts, and then in a column here we have the number of records from that week. This graph shows the number of records per week across the whole year, so it makes it easy to see where this species is most often recorded in the year. In the case of the mottled umber, the first week in November is the peak recording week for adults of the species. We can also see here the larval records, and these are more easily seen if you hover over the stage that you'd like to see here. Let's have a look at another species just to help us with this. The drinker has a lot of records from pre-adult stages, and it can look a bit confusing on this graph, so what you can do is actually remove some stages from the graph. So I'm going to click on adult here. So this is excluded adult, and we have the larval records, the cocoon records and the egg records remaining on the graph, and it will show you when in the year these things have been most recorded. And you can also hover on these columns here and it will tell you the exact number of records per week. Another thing about this graph is that you can use the era filter that is also there on the map. Let's have a look at the Hebrew character to tell us more about this. So there's quite a big difference sometimes in when this moth flies according to the historical era. So here I've got all of the records since the year 2000, and you can see there's quite a broad peak here from the last week of March through to April. But the records of this species from the 50s to the late 90s are much later in the year and have a steeper peak. And this is actually something you can notice with a lot of the species that we have in Durham, especially those that fly earlier in the year. There is this general trend as time goes on towards earlier and broader flight times. Below the week graph, we have graphs for the records per year, for all the years since 2000 here, according to the individuals that have been recorded and the records here. And we have a similar idea split across the eras, so you can see historically how often this species has been recorded. Below this is the species gallery, where we have all of the photos of this species. We've included as many stages as possible. In the case of mottled umber, we have a nice selection of adult photos here and also some of the larvae here. If you click on any of the photos, let's have a look at this one, you will get a caption which contains the location at which the moth was seen and the date and the photographer, in this case me. And you can also switch between the photos within the lightbox like so, and I think you can use arrow keys to do the same thing. Finally, at the bottom of the species page, we have two lists here of links. We have a list of food plants that this species is known to use in its larval stages, quite a few for the mottled umber, and we have a list of habitats where you might expect to encounter this species. Once again, if you click on any of these links, they will take you to a page that shows all of the species that use hornbeam, in this case, as a food plant. Now, I've gathered this information from this data source here, and this data source only includes information for macro species. So all of the micro species on this website currently don't have information about food plants and habitats, but I'm hoping to change that in the future. That's about all for the species pages. I hope you find this useful, and I'll post another video about other ways to use the website soon.